Welcome to the podcast. Me and Adam are in Japan today. We're in Tokyo. It's such such a strange place. Yeah, Tokyo. We're in Tokyo. We've been in Kyoto as well. It's very beautiful, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
They have, taste when it comes to art and things like that.
Yes, there's just an underlying strange perversion, especially in Tokyo, isn't it? Like we went into the area with all the cartoons. I forgot what it's called. You remember what it's called?
The anime section, I don't know, but that didn't exist in Kyoto, only in Tokyo.
Yeah, and it's I have to say it's the most uncomfortable I've been in a long time walking through an area of town with
makes you want to shower.
It's pretty bad, yeah. Like it's the open. I mean, I've never liked anime anyway per se as a pastime for people. I don't think it's a healthy thing for them to watch. But after being in Japan and seeing the epicenter of anime culture, I'm actually disgusted by it.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
Makes you want to shower.
Yes. Yeah. But other than that, Japan's been fine. Other than that, it's been good. We were hit with envy, I think, at the martial arts school in
that was amazing.
Kyoto. Mm. If you've never been there, basically they have a Budo center, like a large martial arts school. How big was it? It's pretty huge.
It was huge. It took us a long time to walk around it.
Yeah, that's right. We weren't invited in. We had to walk around the perimeter of this martial arts school, and the facilities that they have for sumo and karate and kudo and everything is far beyond what you get in the Chinese martial arts usually.
And very stylish, which is also not what you get in the Chinese martial arts.
No, that's true. There was no skanky sports gym with a bright red carpet to do wushu on or anything, was it?
Almost looks like a Zen Temple or something with nice gardens and beautiful architecture, subdued colors, not gaudy.
Very, very nice, yeah. Yeah. And I was saying to Adam, that one of the hardest things for me, you were always in the Chinese arts, right?
Yeah.
External Gong Fu, internal Gong Fu, whatever. But coming from the Japanese arts to the Chinese arts, one of the hardest things was the quality of the paraphernalia. You know what I mean? Like the weapon. You went from a katana, highly polished,
to the foil
Iaido swords, to to the wushu swords and everything. And being in Japan now, first time in many, many years, has reminded me just how much care they put into the martial arts and all the stuff around it.
It's the entire culture is that. Like, we live in Southeast Asia where everything's broken all the time. I didn't see one broken thing the entire time.
No.
Everything runs perfectly. Every tap, off is off, not a drop coming out. Everything works perfectly.
I hated it.
Yeah, it's it's not for me, actually. But you have to give it to them for what it is.
Mm.
They definitely care. Apply attention to everything, including making the swords and the martial arts tools and stuff. Not like the Chinese ones.
No, it's an odd. There's a conflict there, isn't there? Like the country is very beautiful, everything works, everything's very efficient. Yet actually, Southeast Asia, that's complete chaos.
Well, there's more. For me, it's my preference. There's more life.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
The spark of life is strong in Southeast Asia.
I've never been in a country where everyone feels so lonely.
Well, they all work, as far as I can tell, everyone works all the time in a little cubicle. And, it's been weird, right? We go and eat somewhere and there's no sound. Even some of the days you'd walk along the street in a city and there were no voices. Nobody's talking, no interaction.
Well, there's our loud, obnoxious voices in the restaurant.
Well, it was only us, and on the trains, only us.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a loneliness for sure there.
Which I would imagine, if you are a very Zen person, to use it in a colloquial sense, could actually kind of suit you a little bit. But for a non-practitioner...
And generally, human beings are social animals.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, Japan was epitomized for me, I think. We always focus on the negative. It's a very beautiful country. I apologize for any Japanese people listening. It's a very, very beautiful country and many things I really like. But it was epitomized for me when we were sat in the breakfast place and there was a man sort of with his head just on his hands. He just looked like he was in a really sorry state. Only a young guy. He looked like he had burnout, which you shouldn't have burnout in your early 20s.
No.
I wouldn't have thought.
I think there's a lot of that.
Yeah, high pressure society.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, strange place. Yeah, like a alien planet.
It's definitely very unique.
Mm-hmm. I know we wanted to talk about a couple of things up at the series in this podcast, and one of the things was we were discussing some of the concepts in Japanese martial arts a little bit, and one of them being a writing by a man named Gichin Funakoshi, which if you're not familiar with who that is, he was an Okinawan fella who is known as the sort of the founder of the modern karate systems, which there's a bit of politics around that, but the founder of modern karate, and he was a great writer, and one of his phrases that he wrote is the Zen and the fist are one. Okay, Kenzanichi Ryu, it's just 4 characters, and it's often, I remember, above the dojos that I used to go into. The karate dojos would often have it written above it, and it's a piece of calligraphy you see around quite often. So this idea of fist or chuan, same in Taijiquan, and Zen being one, I thought I would allow Adam to explore a little bit and see what he made of that concept.
Well, I think that's at least for me, in my experience, is the primary concept, sort of the essential pithy point of practicing martial arts. And I think it's misunderstood by people. Like we talked about, like maybe they practice Chan, they practice meditation to get better at punching people in the face. I think that's not what it means. That would be a reversal of the message. It should be that you attain Chan, Zen, through your movement practice, through your martial arts, whatever it is.
Through the vehicle of the martial art itself.
Which is not martial art, it's cultivation.
Sure.
Through martial arts, but not practicing to go and beat others up or cut them in half with a sword or anything.
Sure. We were using the example of jumping away from karate of iaido, the art of drawing the sword and drawing the cut. And usually it's a
solo art.
Solo art, yeah. Yes, solo art. It's one of the qualities of iaido. If you're not familiar with it, it's an art I practiced when I was younger, which is based on a series of kata, which I guess most people watching is probably Chinese martial art.
But everyone knows that. I guess.
Similar to a form. Well, there was one Australian teacher that did Chinese katas, yeah. So short katas, which are short sequences of movements, like forms, but like 3 to 4 moves only, and it's always the same. Sword is drawn, cut, clean the blade by flicking the blood off, and then return the blade to sheath. A very, very small sequence, but always practiced on its own. And the iaido not a partner, not like kendo or anything like this.
Because you're supposed to absorb into it.
Yes. I was reading or watching, we were chatting about it this morning over breakfast, about the discussions going on in the iaido world, from what I can see, that are almost similar to the Taiji discussions in many ways about...
Test it.
Yeah, pressure testing. As in, it's not really iaido unless you go out and fight a man to the death.
Which is the opposite of what the art is.
Mm.
Yeah.
What do you think would be the... as both of us are kind of outsiders to iaido this day, but I wonder what your take on that as a solo practice with cutting with a sword.
Well, I haven't practiced it, but I mean, it's attractive to me. That's how I practice Tai Chi.
Sure.
Like almost never push hands. People always think I'm a push hands guy, but the fact is, most of the times I push hands is on camera.
Right, sure.
Because at a workshop or something like that. In my solo training, it's all, like in my daily training, it's all solo. Even if I'm with people that I train with, we just happen to be in the same space together training solo.
Sure, okay.
Because it's the absorption, the emptiness, the Jung Jing within, the silence within that you're cultivating mainly. So, the idea of pressure testing that it's beside the point, I'd say.
So is it more like for you to say the tuichi, the pushing hands is every now and then to kind of see how the solo practice is developing?
It's just an expression of what you're developing. Yeah. You're not developing that.
Sure.
It changes because you get a deeper, the Chan, the Zen gets deeper.
Sure.
I think that's it.
This is why I've seen you write several times that when people ask, I think it's fair to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've seen people ask you about like, what's the secret drill or what's the secret method? Is it Yang Shao Hao, the Yang Ban Hao, the Yang Bing Bang method, whatever it is, or
It's Mongjin.
meditation. Yeah, it's meditation, is what you always say.
Absolutely, 100%. I've always said that, and I don't think that will ever change. Yeah,
Because of the attaining of the condition of Chan, like dhyana in the middle of that.
I mean, I think because of the extreme stillness and equanimity that can be attained within the center of the mobilization of qi, and without the quality of absorption of mind to a much lesser degree, you can't access the qi anyway. I don't think you can do any internal work without some meditative quality. It doesn't have to go as far as what I would call Chan, right?
Sure, yeah.
But you need at least some even to access anything beyond the physical or the mind.
So you're talking at least a baseline of absorption or high-level stabilized concentration at the minimum?
Yeah, minimum is the stable mind that can absorb into the body.
Sure, okay.
Minimum. Which is not the Chan, it is one with the fist or whatever.
Sure.
But it's a start.
Okay.
But then who can do that without meditation, right?
Not many.
You can get it without meditation, but it's harder. You need to find that thing, and then, if you can't do it sitting still, it's going to be tough doing it moving around.
That's where the strength of the Ido comes in, I guess.
Simple movement over and over, right?
Very, very simple. Yeah. And also very beautiful arcs, or the actual beauty of the cleanness of the cut and everything makes it much nicer to absorb into in a way. Which is maybe something I think sometimes people underappreciate, that the quality of the movement itself almost has to be interesting enough for you to absorb into, if you know what I mean. Appealing enough for the absorption to take place.
It would definitely help. It's easier to absorb into something beautiful. Right?
Yes.
When I teach meditation, I always encourage the students to make their inner being beautiful through sila. Right, so that your conduct is good enough that you are happy to be inside. Like if you do kindness and stuff all the time, it's easy to rest inside. But if you're a total ass, of course, it's repulsive to rest inside. So the mind gets pushed out of your inner being all the time. But if it's beautiful in there, if it's healthy, if it's energized, if you do kind deeds, if you feel basically good, it's easy to absorb. So I guess the same thing would happen with the movement too.
And are you tempted by the Japanese way, which is to slice your opponent's throat open with a 4-foot razor blade and then do some origami and flower arranging directly afterwards?
It would be an interesting test on the steady hand, and that didn't affect me at all. I have perfect equanimity, or is it, am I just a sociopath?
the beautiful contradiction, isn't it, in the Japanese art of that killing or being prepared to kill, being prepared to die, actually, I suppose, more to the point with that kind of battlefield existence, and then arranging some peonies or something, or folding some paper afterwards is quite profound. And I think in some ways a model or a demonstration really of the kind of idea of what we're talking about with Chuan in general, like in the Chinese art, something that's missed. Do you get what I mean? Like the contrast between those two mindsets and how they come together is, I think, as applicable to the Chinese arts as well.
Of course. No, it's all cultivation has to have that.
Zen and the fist are one.
Yeah, but it's quite lost.
Yes.
Or not so common. When I first sort of got Tai Chi, it came from just doing the opening movement.
Sure.
I only did the opening movement for many, many months, nothing else. And for a lot of time, every day, over and over and over, not blind repetition, absorbing into the single thing.
Treating it like your meditation, essentially?
I still did seated meditation, but yeah, it was a meditation for sure. Or at least the quality that I found in seated meditation was I could carry it into that simple movement.
Sure, okay.
I don't think I could carry it into the form because my legs had hurt and, I forget forms and stuff like that.
Sure.
What comes next? But one movement, and you get the quality of that, the meditative state in movement whilst mobilizing qi, and, that's,
yes,
I think that's sort of the key.
Yeah, similar to the strength, I think, with one of the beauties of Qigong sometimes is because it's one
more simple movement
repeated over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
And that sometimes people move away from it too quick. They're like, 5 repetitions, move on or something. But should be done for a long time. Yeah. See, it's something that I've debated with people before. I'm sure you've seen it yourself, where people will make a distinction between, for example, Taiji or Taijiquan, as in Taiji without fist on the end, and Taijiquan with a fist on the end.
Yeah. Tai Chan. That's really what it should mean when they say Chuan.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but you know that their distinction usually means
combat Tai Chi.
Totally. It's real if it's got Chuan on the end. And there's almost like an apologist nature. If you write something about philosophy or something, they'll say, "Oh, it's okay because that's Taiji."
You're not a Chuan like I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what would be the implication for you for the term
Chuan?
Yeah.
Chan. Yeah.
Okay. So your Taiji Chuan.
Well, if they're one.
Yes.
Then you can just use the other word. Or not even need to change the word and understand the actual meaning.
So I think of it like this, like Chuan obviously means a boxing style as well, it does refer to that.
Yeah.
And I think that there was obviously a historical development that took place at some point in time. I'm not a historian, I'm not good at all that shit, but where a lot of the fighting styles pass through the filter of Buddhism and the Shaolin Temple, right?
Yeah.
And I think at that stage, what happens when they pass through that filter, that's when the
hold on,
Chan
I can use this for more.
Yeah.
Which
exactly.
You've been working as a martial artist for a time. You get older, like you're on the decline. There's mortality is dawning upon you, and if you have any kind of depth of person, then hopefully you reflect about going deeper in life and not just I'm going to keep behaving like a young man.
Sure, yes.
Mortality should make people think of the spirit, right? And usually doesn't dawn on people till around 40 or something, which is also when the physicality starts to go down, especially if you've been punching on your whole life.
What are you on about? Not at all.
For others.
I'm still on the way up.
For them down there.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that kind of thing would happen.
Yeah, I don't see how it couldn't, and for a sensible, high-minded person anyway. And I think that being out here, I think sometimes people, either they've not been to Asia, and I'm not saying everybody needs to go to Asia to learn. No, definitely not. But
absolutely not.
But at the same time, if you haven't been here to Asia and been in a more traditional part of it, because of course you can go to modern Asia, you can go to Pattaya. It's not a particularly traditional part of Thailand, for example,
it's rotten.
Bangkok or something. But if you go to a traditional part of Asia, you can still feel like, maybe not Tokyo, but Kyoto, you could feel very much that there's still that idea, that culture pervading all of the people here, that they would all automatically accept that there is something higher than the physical or the clumsy, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And I do think that as when I was growing up, before I'd been to Asia, you came earlier because you pretty much grew up in Thailand, didn't you, after a certain age? And
I was probably 18.
Oh, right. Oh, he's still a few years before me. Right. Yeah, I was sort of early 20s, really early. So I came over, and even though I kind of knew that concept from training in the UK and training Japanese arts and training in Europe and things, it wasn't till I was sort of surrounded by that I actually realized just how much it pervades everyone's mindset. So
and
the reason
daily life.
So that contradiction of the fist or boxing and Zen being one is not a contradiction for them.
Yeah, I mean that's it's that like the sport mentality of martial arts in the West doesn't help.
No.
Because if you had to divide them, even it would be forgetting about the killing martial art. There's really the martial art as path and martial art as sport.
Sure.
And then there's the delusional self-defense guys, but forgetting about that.
What's delusional about the self-defense guys?
Oh, like the guy's going to jump out and stick me with a knife and I'm ready, and like how they are, how they are.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I was telling Adam the other day that there was a Facebook group, and I like to read the Facebook groups over breakfast. I don't know why, like morbid curiosity more than anything else.
Because amusement is good.
Why am I doing this to myself? But there was somebody asked something along the lines of, in a Tai Chi group, it was in a Tai Chi group, So who here has used their martial art to defend themselves? And it was like a life and death situation or something. And the thread was huge.
Yesterday,
Yeah,
I defended myself against 3 hoodlums with knives.
it was that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It was a lot
That's
of
what
people.
I mean by the delusional self-defense thing.
Yeah, it's just fantasy.
Yeah.
For the vast majority of people, yes. Yeah, it's been nice being here in this culture, and I'm close to fully having my love of the Japanese martial arts rekindled to the point that I wish to engage with them
Nice.
again, and then part of my brain goes, that's big.
Yeah, and how many
long.
things? There's a lot to do. I mean, it's that.
There's a bunch.
Yeah.
Right. So the other thing I want to do is draw out some of the things you talk about, or we've been talking about recently, especially because I'm sure most people notice you're a little bit less wordy than I am.
Just a little.
a little bit more succinct. So sometimes you write things and or you talk about things and we discuss things, and I'd like to tease that out of you a little bit more, because I don't think everyone gets it. So we were talking about push hands, and oh no, that's not true. Not just push hands. It's sort of internal arts in general, and how they work. And you made a really clear distinction between 3 different ways of delivering power, would I say, or developing power?
Sure.
Something like that. And I thought it was quite nice, actually. And it was only when you mentioned it, I realized, yeah, that's very, very true. Is that you can distinguish what people call internal force, excluding the people who don't believe in it, of course. But you can divide the internal force into 3 different levels. One would be a sort of physical fascia-based, you're talking about?
Yeah.
Soft tissue, fascia-based, stretching kind of stuff, internal force. Second one being chi.
Yeah.
Should stop there with that definition. And third one being mind tricks.
Yeah.
Maybe you would say.
Not as, I mean, tricks has a negative sort of connotation, but yeah, mind.
So maybe you could explore those 3. How you define those.
Okay, so the physical one, I would define as developing the ability to access the silk inside the body, is what I call it, the fascia.
Okay.
Yeah. So in my opinion, when we talk about pulling silk, it's talking about that aspect of the training.
Okay.
The physical fascial network, stretching, unstretching, winding, doing all the stuff that it does.
Stuff that pulls and creates resistance inside your body when you move and stuff.
Physical differentials through the membranes.
Okay.
Yeah. So somewhere in the classics they say, the internal force uses the membranes, that kind of idea.
Sure, like Jung Jing methods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still the physical part of internal. And I think, I'm not saying that it's physical as in it's not internal, it's just the physical part of the internal.
But you're clearly distinguishing it between that and sort of muscular contraction and leverage.
Not muscular contraction and leverage around the bones.
Right.
It is the webbing, the fascial, some people call it the wetsuit, things like that. Moving inside.
Okay.
Yeah, and making a very specific kind of power. Now, most people, hardly anyone does that, but people that have any internal, there's a school that does that and develop that and think that that's it.
That's where I started, I think.
I think that's a very important
rebounding
part.
Kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it can go a lot further than rebounding.
Sure.
But I think it's a very important part. And I think that the other aspects should also have that.
Right, sure.
Maybe it's foundational or something like that. So opening the body and all that is so you can develop that.
Okay, yes.
Now that's a big chunk of what we call the internal people that actually can do stuff.
So that, yes.
A high percentage of if there's this many people think they're doing internal arts and this many that can do something,
sure.
Right?
Yep.
Most of them are doing that.
Sure, yes.
Yeah. And then the next biggest chunk, which is almost everyone else, has developed some kind of mind skill.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So they can
This
develop...
is the one that's probably hardest for people to understand, I think, when we were chatting about it.
Yeah, it's difficult to explain what it is because you need mind skill to perceive it.
Go for it. You're on the spot. Do your best.
Well, they have some kind of meditative skill. Maybe they don't have the jhanas or chan, but they can make a frequency of mind and use intention and subtle sort of concept to affect the mind energy
of themselves
and the opponent,
right?
Partner.
Okay. Yes,
and it certainly works at a certain strata of resistance.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's quite important, isn't it? Within a certain, not even compliance, but a framework where the conditions have to be right between both people.
I mean, it would be pretty hard to do when somebody's trying to
hit you with a baseball bat.
Yeah, very difficult. Yeah. But the silk, the fascial thing, will work just fine against the guy with the baseball bat.
Sure.
If you're good enough at it.
Yeah, and you can make it tensile enough, strong enough.
And it's you don't need to be in like a special.
So the mind stuff is maybe similar to what I've seen in some of like. Not it's going to sound like I'm being negative in some of the like the Systema lines that are
their empty forcey stuff is that and most of the so-called Tai Chi masters that we've seen video of and everything that have like woo-woo skill is that also
mind tricks based stuff
mind
tricks stuff. I shouldn't say tricks,
but
you know what I mean.
It's the chi of the mind is how I like to describe it.
Yeah, when you're
mind energy.
When you're captured by it, the feeling of it is like the intent is led. It's like you can almost physically feel your intent being captured, and then your nerves are reacting to what's being done by the other person's intent, right?
Yeah, like that.
Okay.
And maybe their intent is even an empty one of non-intent, but it's still affecting you through the mind nervous system connection.
Sure.
Definitely. Okay, so let's say the first one is 60% of people that are good, and then that's 30%, and maybe there's 10% of the last category, which is people that actually cultivate chi, the substance.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Which is super rare as far as I can tell.
And you referred to it as a substance.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like it's funny, when I first heard about chi, read about chi, got into the arts, it was definitely a substance.
Like the sort of beginner's books when you don't really know much about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you gradually get educated, indoctrinated to that. Oh, it's a process. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. It's everything else except a substance. It couldn't possibly be a substance.
Yeah, Chinese.
Otherwise, science would know what it is, and they would have found it.
Yes.
Right. So you get indoctrinated out of that. Mm-hmm. At least that happened to me for some time, and then I realized much more directly through experience, oh yes, it is a substance. So I think it's a substance that is developed and built under certain conditions.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if you use that for your art, whether it's Qigong or Tai Chi or whatever, that's the sort of third category. So I break it up into these three ways: physical, mental, and proper internal Qi.
Yes, and it's hard. And after you said that as well, like I guess I've been able to distinguish between people doing these different things, and even myself able to use these different methods. But that clear distinction of three is quite nice, actually, and very, very clear cut.
Everything's in trinities all the time. The Trinity returns.
So I could add a fourth one, just nothing internal. But yeah, and that distinction is nice, and I do see that the distinction between those three is quite. It's rare for people to make. Like I see the fascia group talking about this is chi.
Mm-hmm. They will use the word chi.
Sure.
All three of them might use the word chi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the mind people definitely believe that the chi is being used. Or it's like even if it's with a degree of fajin, that has to be broken up even more. Yeah. Into these categories. It's not so clean as to just say has fajin, does not have fajin.
No, they're not.
I think you can see as well. Sorry, I've got some drinking water. I think you can see as well. I don't know if you'd agree with this, but I think often the I won't say tricks. I'm so saying tricks. Mind skill level often involves verbal cues.
I think yes,
not always.
It does. But I would think that's the crappy version. They don't really have it. If you need to use a verbal cue, you don't have it. Mm-hmm. That would be the counterfeit version.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, because there's a fair bit of that, isn't it? Where I see people
most
talking.
Common, very common. You see the whole setup and everything. It's, yeah, and the mind people, even the ones that might have a real one, their idea is kind of like you don't have to build a chi or anything. You just have to find it. Like you already have it. You can just get it.
That is
because there is no substance. So why would you build it?
That is a mindset that I think is problematic, actually. If you have people that are going into an internal art and then they're fascinated in understanding the substance of chi, then you have someone that just says, "Oh, you just have to recognize it," or something like that.
Yeah.
So obviously, my heart is with the building chi. That's a large part of what I do, Neigong and everything as well. But maybe do you have some ideas you could share on what is the benefit of the chi method as opposed to the mind level or the fascia connection level?
Okay.
As in, why would you accumulate large volumes of chi? Because that's what everyone always asks. It's a question I never asked. It was like, this is what the art should do. So
it's
I did
way
it.
more cool.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think that what is real is chi and consciousness.
Okay.
And what is not real is matter, body, and mind.
And you're meaning, in this context, real for the art, the real method, what it's based upon?
I mean...
You mean literally the
yes.
reality of?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah. But it would, of course, also for the art.
Go on then, explore that for us. Explain that deeper.
Well, that which lasts...
You can't be so succinct, Adam.
That which lasts is real. That which doesn't last or is ever-changing and sort of in flux is not real.
Okay, sure.
That which is worth cultivating for something beyond this life cycle versus that which isn't.
Okay, sure.
That's so. That which is real goes beyond death. That which isn't real doesn't go beyond death.
But then the contradiction to that is that if the body is not built to a certain extent, the physical, then
you have to use it. I mean, you have to use your mind too. They're the tools. They're not the substances.
It's that idea that you can't move beyond something until it's ready to be moved beyond. It's
like skip the body.
Yeah.
No, you can't, and you have to use it all the time anyway. And one that's dysfunctional and not healthy won't build chi, and neither will a mind that's not still. So the people, I mean, to build chi is about mind and body interacting, right? That's how you build chi in a very specific way. So if you just interact mechanically, it doesn't work. But we talk about absorbing into the body and stuff like that.
Yes.
So even though I'm saying mind and see, it's really consciousness absorbing into the body, not mind, not thought, not idea.
The very act of thought or idea, to me,
that takes you out.
Pulls you out. You can't absorb into it.
That's right.
Yeah, the conversation we were having the other day about like what is inside and what is outside, and even if you're locating your mind, if the location of your mind is inside, as far as you're aware, that's where you're localizing it, but you still have a thought frame or something that's still outside. It's like your awareness is in the thought frame rather than inside the body, right?
That's the problem with wrong E.
Wrong E.
Yeah, like intending.
Right. Sure.
Willing.
Yes.
Yeah, willing is a mistake because it's outer. Or imagining, right? It's outer. Even if you're doing it inside, you have to be, being aware, being conscious, not being dewy.
And that's a massive distinction for building chi. So obviously, a lot of people will defend, unless you disagree with that.
No, I think that's well, you can't build if you're doing that.
Sure.
The doer.
So this is where
Cetana is the word I use, a Pali word.
What's the word? Sorry?
It's the doer.
Okay.
Cetana, doer. It's the willer, the doer. It's really what the ego really is.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That if it's active, it's very difficult to build chi.
So this is where the debate comes back, which we've discussed before anyway, visualization and things like this as a method, which in meditations often can be really elaborate, visualizing a deity or something like that kind of.
Yeah, which I don't count as meditation, but it's seated work.
It's mental exercise.
Mental development is what I normally call it. Yeah.
But then in Tai Chi, visualization is often more on the level of visualizing an opponent or
I don't do that at all.
Visualizing an application or something.
I don't do that at all in any way.
Yeah, completely. I think that is those are methods, aren't they, that will directly conflict the actual production or building of chi.
Yes, totally.
In a way, in many ways, the mind skill level will prevent the building of chi as well.
Of course.
So
because it is the doer.
Completely.
And then that's why they think it's just something that you already have, because they can't build it. So there's no differential between not building and building it, because they can't build it because what they're doing stops you from building it.
And that's where this idea of near enemies comes in. It's like you can have a little success with the mind skill level, but
absolutely,
it blocks you from touching the real
thing. I always
right?
talk about the near enemy. It's one of my main things. And I think the biggest problem is always that which works.
Yeah, there's a process, isn't there? That which works. It's like every time you just start to be able to do something, you need to double check that actually is this like one step I've taken that's going to prevent me doing
Yeah.
anything else? And often you have to go, well, I've just achieved something, but I must drop that skill already for something else, for the real thing.
If I had to say why the Tai Chi world is so bad,
In a diplomatic fashion.
yeah, it would be the near enemy.
Sure.
Like the people, when I started getting into it, there were certain names that had some skill that I saw, and they are the same or maybe worse now than when I started.
Yes.
Because they become attached to the near enemy. Oh, they get a result. Look, I can bounce him back. I can do something. I've got it. I know what it is.
Sure.
I think knowing what it is a big disaster. And getting attached to things deeply is a big problem. Like they just can't move on.
Sure.
They don't realize they're attached to the near enemy, and it's blocking their further development. And I think that happens all over the arts.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big problem.
Yeah, I'm sure it's exactly the same. Well, I know it is exactly the same in the Japanese arts. As I know it is, that's not fair. I was involved in the Japanese arts for a long time prior to the internet being a major thing. And then in the last couple of nights, because I've been interested, back in Japan, it was like katana. We went to a shop and saw some swords. I bought a Japanese sword. It was, all the excitement's back there. You nearly bought a samurai suit randomly, but it reinvigorated that Japanese interest. So I went and started reading for the first ever time the forums and videos and views on Japanese arts. Right?
They're human problems. It's going to be in anything.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. They're having the argument about ki versus not ki.
Yeah, of course.
Identical, and even fascia versus not fascia with an arts like karate. It's, as far as I can make out, the same debates.
A universal problem, I guess.
Yeah. It's funny that okay, so if I take those three levels, and maybe you could disagree with these, the physical level, the energy, and the mind skill. Mm-hmm. It's like the body has to be developed first. So there definitely has to be opening and pulling the silk and stretching everything, engaging the body.
For Tai Chi or Qigong and Neigong.
Completely. Yeah, oh yeah, for Qigong and Neigong for sure as well, yeah. So that all has to be built. And then many of the skills, not tricks, that can be produced at the level of the mind skill. I consider it tricks.
Whatever, we can call it mind tricks.
At the level of mind skill.
Jedi mind trick.
Yes, a lot of those things, actually when you build the Qi, they kind of do that anyway. Those skills kind of get produced.
Oh yeah, in a much more tangible and like substantial version, which doesn't require such a narrow set of conditions.
And no glass ceiling.
Yeah, it goes much further. Yeah.
Like definitely when you build Qi, I mean, it certainly grips and pulls the silk to a higher degree.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
Yeah, it's like pulling the silk, or if you want, or opening the body at the beginning has to be done manually, really. Like you have to actually pull the body open, right? Yeah. But then once the Qi builds to a certain level, not the same, right? You just release and the Qi does all the mechanism pulling for you.
Well, that's really what proper internal is, the Qi doing the work, right?
Yes.
At least that's how I define it.
How long do you think it takes then for majority of people?
I can't answer that. I don't believe in any equality among beings. Like, I mean, people are not the same.
Yeah.
Never. Quickly. 2 years, 10 years. I mean, no.
In the past, I'd have disagreed with you on the never, but I've been...
No, there's plenty of nevers.
I've been disproved on that. Some people will struggle, yeah. I think the causative factor for the ones that I've found that can't even step into the door of building the Qi is simply that they can't switch off the thought forms. They can't. So they can place their mind into a location, but there's something that prevents them from just shutting up in their head. It just can't happen.
No shamatha.
Yeah, completely.
No calm, yeah.
It's the same people that complain about everything. That's what I've noticed.
Well, they're just always, stimulated by the outer.
So I've had people come to the school, and it'll be, I don't want to say just the Bali school that I'm running, or pointing out here, like that's Tokyo, totally different place. Couldn't run a school here, couldn't afford it. But Bali or somewhere like that, or in the Swedish school or the European school, and it's almost always the same people that come in and are like, oh, weather's not very nice, or the door's rusty, or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a weird example, but just the constant complaints, or it's a bit cramped in here, or and they're picking minor things. Are the same people I find who can't even build the Qi.
Right.
And I think there's a justice there.
I mean, if I had to say what it was off the top of my head, I'd say it's neurotics.
Karen can't build chi.
No.
Yeah.
It's always, stop being so neurotic. Just stop. That's the first thing, is stop being neurotic. And neurosis is epidemic. I mean, it's everywhere.
Sure.
So there's a lot of people that can't. It ultimately doesn't mean they can never, but at least in their current formation, they're going to have real trouble. So that comes back to body matters, mind matters too. You have to correct the mind and body. That's the sort of preliminary work, right? Which takes years, I guess. So years.
Yeah. Filling with chi is not a particularly fast process. No. Even once you've got the foot in the door, it's quite a tricky thing.
Well, let's say it takes a couple of years to get your body right.
Yep.
I mean, it's different if you're young and you're not hurt, but if you've had a life and stuff.
Yes.
And, you know, most people these days, everyone like all hunched over the phone and stuff, that's going to be a whole other problem. And then you've got no attention span because you always watch social media and...
Anime.
Yeah. Well, then you have no Jing either.
Yeah. I'm disgusted.
So you're screwed, basically.
Yeah.
So it takes years just to correct your normal being, right? To correct the mind and body, to make it even okay, to start trying to practice. And then you have to learn how to access the chi once you've got the tools. So building the tools is years.
Yes.
Learn how to access it. And it doesn't take that long if you have the tools, honestly. But then from then the time begins, and it takes a long time. Yeah. And then when do you say there is some? I mean, it's endless as far as I can tell. So yeah, it's a long time.
I guess my definition when there's some is when it starts to grip everything. Right. Like when it is dense enough to interact with the physical body to a certain extent. That would be the start of it. I don't know if you would view it the same, but
yeah, I mean, why not? That's as good as any other.
I think it's because you have some kind of physical feedback, and if you don't have that feedback,
well, I would say, I would say it's when there's. I would just say, show me.
Right. Okay.
When you can show me, then you have some.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Not just a perception in your own mind. In other words, something tangible, which means physical.
So if the building of the chi really is the key, this is where it almost becomes difficult then to ascertain exactly what the causative exercise is that builds the chi, right?
I don't think that's one particular exercise. It's the quality
exactly
of your consciousness and body interaction.
Yeah, so it was something I realized that Jamjong doesn't build chi, but form doesn't build chi. But if your absorption is good, then Jamjong builds chi and form builds chi.
Yeah, exactly that.
Although absorbing into Jamjong is definitely easier than the form because you're not moving.
I mean, the way I teach it, the standard, at least for quite a long time, they build chi doing the standing.
Right, okay. Yeah. Same process with
I mean, good luck doing it moving if you can't do it standing.
Very, very difficult.
So you can I see also an exact correlation with people that don't think standing's extremely important. They have no chi development.
Yes.
I mean, there's no chance. Maybe if you're super gifted or something, it could happen.
Yes.
Or, I guess it could happen, but I haven't seen it happen.
Or sometimes the other way that something like Jamjong or standing or Dingsha is turned into such, it's like it's gone down a weird route. So it's all now about very, very exact alignments, like tiny little adjustments for the sake of it. And I've seen people turning Jamjong into like, rulers up on your back. I've seen people doing and protractors to get the angles right. And I sometimes think actually that your posture can be slightly off, but if your absorption is really good,
that's true.
Still produce the chi, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. But for Tai Chi, the structure and stuff is a bit more important. So you become deeply song, not so the structure makes power. That's a massive misunderstanding, right?
Yes.
The structure is important so you can release deeply. And if the flesh is released, it's easier for the consciousness to absorb in. It's very difficult to absorb into flesh that's kind of in a seizure all the time.
Yeah, like the layers are all bound up, right?
Yeah, right. You can't. Like that's when you injure yourself and it's all swollen. Like you can't get your mind in there. It's a dull feeling. Yeah. When it gets all open from some massage and stuff and the mind can get in, that you can absorb.
Yeah, sure.
So I think the song's extremely important.
And it brings you back to that idea of the chi being an actual substance. Because
it can't get in.
Totally. If it's not a substance, you don't need the space for it to form into anyway, right?
That's
it to build up.
That's why I always say song and ting, because it's open and then you can absorb the consciousness in, the knowing in, and that's what builds it, those two.
So I thought song and ting, particularly if you're not familiar, the release process essentially, and listening,
Yeah,
Which
I don't like the word listening, but yeah.
You could define it as stabilization of awareness into an object or into the body, right?
Yeah.
I think they choose the word listening because it's a passive sense faculty as opposed to looking, right?
Right.
Because you wouldn't say smelling, you wouldn't say tasting. Feeling is a deceptive one sometimes.
I mean, it's closer, but it's way more dangerous.
Listening is quite a good one.
Yeah.
It's not many times you put your mind aside and you hear auditory hallucinations or something. That would normally you need a trip to a certain hospital. But visual stuff is easy to accidentally be produced, right? Like you look inside.
And I think the thing with listening is it's like, oh, what did you say?
Right, okay, yeah.
There's a carefulness. You have to pay attention to hear something.
Yes.
You don't have to pay attention to see something in the same way.
And it would be strange if they use the word smelling.
Yeah. So that's deeply paying attention, really. It's attention absorbing in.
Sure.
Right?
So if you got, I thought those two phrases like song and ting were, because the teachers I had when I was younger, those were very important phrases. I thought they were universal across Taiji. Like, right. I didn't know until recent times there's actually a disagreement, and some people believe that song and ting is incorrect for Taiji.
Oh, it's a strange world.
there's a movement towards it. There's a whole movement towards it. I can understand the movement in Taiji of there not being chi. I understand it. I get it.
Yeah, if you haven't experienced it, it seems pretty out there.
Yeah, I don't agree, but I understand. But the lack of release and absorption, I don't understand where that mindset comes from, because that's the basis of Taiji.
It's the base of the art, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think it's the base of most internal work, not just Tai Chi. Song might be more important in Tai Chi than some other internal arts, but at least to get the access in, you'd need some.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then, if you have sorry, apologies if I sound a little throaty. It's the first time I've been in a cold climate for
me too.
A long time.
Years in the tropics and then thrown into the bitter cold and wind and trampling around hours a day outside. Yeah, it's been tough.
What is this thing you have to wrap around your neck to stay warm? Yeah, with the sort of back to that thing of this idea of the fist and chana one, really, or zena one, as they would say, brings us into this idea of the song and the ting, the stabilization of the mind into a body that's released and open enough to receive it. This would then bring us to a state that is akin to or closer to a meditative state. And then I wonder, it'd be interesting maybe for people to hear your perspective of how that connects to this idea of what Taiji is. You know, like some people would understand what Taiji as I don't want to say a philosophical concept, an embodied, manifest philosophical concept. Right. How is this related, in your opinion, to Chan, Zen, stillness, meditation?
Well, I think, people usually talk about Tai Chi as yin and yang, or yin yang. I think Tai Chi is within Wuji and potential for yin yang.
Sure. Okay. Yep.
And I don't know, like, the cosmology or whatever.
That's okay.
But something like that.
Yes.
That's my experience of what it is. So within the emptiness of absorption, there's the potential for yin yang. So to me, what Jung Jing is that...
Jung Jing meaning a centralized equilibrium, by the way.
Yeah.
For people
so the saint, the quality of the saint, I often call it, which is that empty, pure stillness inside, maintained, while the chi mobilizes around.
Sure. Okay.
And
yes.
Yeah. And the chi mobilizing around creates the yin-yang chi differentials, and all at the same time as always maintaining Jung Jing. I think that's what Tai Chi is.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Which is very difficult to do.
Yes.
It's an understatement. It's very, very difficult.
It's very difficult.
I think it's one of the hardest things, maybe not the hardest things you can do energetically, but definitely one of the hardest things you can do at the level of your mind that is manifest on the level of the body.
Right. It's definitely not easy.
It's very, very tricky. Yeah, very, very hard. Even the small glimpses I've had of periods of Taiji, if you know what I mean, are so difficult to stabilize or to sustain under full pressure or...
I mean, even not under, just to sustain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when moving.
Yeah.
Especially when moving.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
I can see at that stage how Taiji and meditation or come together.
Well, you are in absorption.
Yes.
that becomes the object of absorption.
Mm.
You're absorbed into Tai Chi. And then you embody it. I guess that's what it is. So how could you do that without meditation?
How could you do it without? I don't. I mean, even more basic. I don't even understand. I don't understand how people manage Tai Chi without standing. To be honest.
Yeah, well,
like static work first, and not even particularly just meditation, but static works first. But I know that some, like even the Huang lineage, like people are saying these days. When I studied with Jung Jing and then Huang Xinshan style, it was static practices were in it. And I only found out later with people that I guess are closer to the source, I suppose, that Huang Xinshan didn't have, supposedly, reportedly said, don't do any standing.
Yeah, I've heard that too. But the first standing set that I teach in my system is from Huang.
Yes.
And according to that particular line,
the people who taught me it was Huang's standing that I was learning.
Yeah. Yes. And so in the end, he stopped doing it.
Is that what it was? Was it sort of developmental stages within his teachings?
That's my understanding from people that were there.
Right. Okay.
Right. So in the end, he stopped. But you move beyond things.
Yes. Brings us back to that thing we were talking about before about like the teachers teaching where they're at rather than where people need to be, and I don't really understand why that happens.
It's a problem, but I don't know why they do it, but it seems to be how they do it.
If I went to my teacher and he just got me to do what he was stepping down way on earth,
that's going to help a lot.
I wouldn't be able to do, would not be able to do what he's doing. I have to do many, many things to even come close to understanding what he's doing.
Yeah, and I think, in my opinion, the characteristic of a good teacher is that they show you how they got there.
Yeah, okay.
And maybe they adjust it because they made errors along the way, sure. But it's not just, this is what I'm doing now. And the characteristic of a good student is they want that. And the characteristic of an immature student is they're like, but what are you doing?
Yeah, sure.
That's not how you do it.
And often leads to the paranoia of people thinking that you're holding something back or something like that.
Which is the opposite. If you want them to not learn, you tell them what you're doing.
Yeah,
They'll never get anything, right? If you want them to get good, you show the steps, the ladder to climb up. So I think for whatever reason, cultural maybe, it's really common that they just try to tell people what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like Schwarzenegger, like be vegetarian. It's like you built your whole life on eating like 2 chickens per meal, Schwarzenegger.
Schwarzenegger's vegetarian?
Well, probably not. I'm sure it's a lie, but that's the sort of what he says.
Right, okay. Like vegan athlete, but was already a meat eater for 20 years or something.
It's
right,
a load.
okay.
It's a load.
Yeah, sure.
So, don't stand. I stood for 30 years. I got my skill, and now I say, don't stand anymore.
Yeah, totally. Don't do external arts because it will clash with internal arts, and you often find out they did external arts for 20 years before
they already,
yeah, the body was developed.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll leave it there. It's quite a good clarification on those points. I just wanted to pull those things out of you, that conversations we've been having, because I think they're interesting people. I also know that no criticism of you, Adam, but you say these things in your writings anyway, but they're very pithy, and I'd like to
even when the camera's on, it's a bit hard to get it out. When we're hanging out and chatting, it's a bit easier. But
sure, because I see people write responses under your writings, which are very useful writings. It's very helpful to the Tai Chi world, I think, and they don't understand. I'm sorry, but often they don't understand. They've misunderstood what you're writing.
It's so direct and clear. How could it be any more clear?
Yes. It's like I think for these kind of subjects in these arts, there has to be a certain degree of understanding before, like, the comprehension has to be at a certain level.
You know what I think it is? It's the person that sees the rusty hinge on the door that you described.
Yeah.
And like the busy mind wants so much.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
But when you're a bit more still and you just, the essential point, boom, okay, got it.
And I tell you what culture would help with that. Japanese, I have to say, after being here for a week,
true.
It's a very, like obviously Zen and minimal, like this is definitely not my podcast studio, is it?
No.
Like minimalist and everything. And one thing I've come to understand after being here, even for this short week, is how it's like, it brings people to the point, isn't it? And it's made me realize how much trimmings that I enjoy, like, because we go to a restaurant and it has what you need. It has the food, it has the chair, it has the table. It just doesn't have what you don't need, which is atmosphere. That's
Atmosphere is a sin.
That's Zen, and that's Japan, as far as I can make
it's so
out.
true.
Well, thank you very much.